to recap. Use active voice. Next, argue in headings, don't predict. Very important to do that. So be arguing that Ms. Crossman did not have an opportunity to view. Don't say things like the court will find that she did not have an opportunity to view. Just argue that she did. Use plentiful record cites. A couple of you didn't have any record cites at all. No! You have to have R period cites throughout the brief. Anytime you have a factual assertion, R period. Use topic sentences for all paragraphs. I can't emphasize that enough. Topic sentences, and if you don't really quite grasp the importance of a topic sentence, I will tell you, I didn't until maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and I'm 55 years old. So I'm not suggesting that if you don't, that's anything to be ashamed of. But really embrace the topic sentence. Learn about it. There might be a good YouTube video on topic sentences. I don't know, but think about those. When you're talking about this court, capital C court. Now, this is the first time that I'm mentioning this book. This book is so critically important. So it's not, you should curl up with it and read it. You should, just so at least you know what's in here. And what it says is capital C court if you're talking about the United States Supreme Court at any time, and this particular court. So if you're talking about now the Court of Appeals, whether they should reverse the district court, it's little d, little c, district court, but this capital C court should reverse. Okay, so this is just a plain old formatting issue. No orphans and widows. You know what the difference is? I don't know which one's an orphan and which one's a widow. They're both sad. But one is where you leave one sentence at the very bottom, and the other one is when you got a sentence all alone at the very top. One's an orphan, one's a widow. We don't want any orphans or widows. You can fix that right there in Microsoft Word by going to the paragraph dialogue or formatting box, and then clicking, I think what the box is something like keep together with next, keep with next. But figure that out. It's very easy to do, but lots of you had widows and orphans. A lot of your arguments would say things like the diminished degree of attention of the witness made it unreliable. No, it's just a factor. So you ought to have a lot of quotes like, or use a lot of phrases like this. This tends to reduce the reliability, tends to increase the reliability. Not, this makes it unreliable. No, that's not the way a factors analysis works, right? Increases, decreases. Militates in favor, militates against. I mean, there are all kinds of different ways to do it, but it's a spectrum, and it's in just one consideration, not the end of the analysis. Match plurals with plurals and singulars with singulars. If I say, when a dog is hungry, they wag their tails. No, I was talking about a dog. And a lot I hear, when a witness, ... there. No, a lot of people did this. A lot of people did this. And you know why it is because I think some people don't want to say his or her, which is true. You want to try to be as gender neutral as possible when you're talking about concepts. So, for example, if I was going to say, when a dog wags its tail, it is happy. So, but dogs aren't its, they're he's or she's. So I would say, if I didn't want to say he or she, I would say, when a dog wags, it. I guess I could use it. There's nothing wrong or offensive about this. When a person smiles, the person is happy, right? When a woman smiles, she is happy. So I'm not saying when a person smiles, they are happy. Remember, just match a with a singular, not they. Don't say the court looks to things. I don't like courts looking so much. Say the court considers this factor. The court evaluates this factors. Don't say things like next. Well, this is the one that really I'm going to get to this later. Next, we consider. Well, it's not all we. Don't say we or our in there. Our case, we consider. Again, the court should, the court must. Those sorts of things. Omit needless words. That's the old saw right from Strunk and White that you've been hopefully hearing ever since you started learning to write. Omit needless words. Due to the fact that, just say because. And I saw a lot of due to the facts that and a lot of wordy things. Lots of, take out the real strong adverbs and adjectives like clearly, substantially obstructed. Just use the facts to show that things were substantially obstructed. But the more hyperbole you put in there with adjectives and adverbs, really, you'd think it'd be more persuasive, but it's actually less. Items in a series, and we have a lot of series here where you're talking about 5 factors. Look in the book here to see whether you should start the series with a colon, and then the phrase, and then a semicolon, right? So people were doing it all different ways. I'm not going to tell you exactly the way to do it because I want you to go to this book and figure out how you're supposed to do items in a series. So look at the book on that. And I've got this here. We do not believe. No, don't say that. We do not believe. Or don't say our case. Formatting is very important. Spacing after headings. Some people would have a heading and then just have the next paragraph just crammed right underneath it with no comfortable space. You want some space in there. Past tense is generally preferred. It's not okay to say, I mean, now that's just one of those general things. If you're talking about events as if they're unfolding now, she walked out, as she was walking out on the balcony, she saw, no, this happened in the past. It's not happening now. So use the past tense. She walked out on the balcony and she saw, as opposed to as she was walking on the balcony, she then gazed into his eye. No, don't talk like that. Talk in the past tense. I mean, preferred. It's not an absolute. Heading formatting, again, single space, hanging indent. Hanging indent, look that up. I put that on most of you all's. I think maybe only 2 or 3 people used hanging indents on their headings. Use short sentences. That's right up there with omit needless words. Use short sentences. Transitions. That transition here. Again, that it's very formulaic. I've talked about this before, and I'm just talking about it again. Instead of saying in our case, just say here. Yeah. Instead of in our case, say here. When you're doing the case analyses, when you're saying that this case is like that case and unlike that example case, say that. Just use the same repetitive transitions. Because remember, we're not writing novels here, we're writing briefs. And the more formulaic you make them, and then the easier it becomes to learn how to do it, and it's easier to read. Because I know, right now she's distinguishing the Smith case from the present case, from our case here. Why? Because she says, unlike in Smith, comma, here, you see what I'm saying? So again, or like in Jones, comma. So again, those transitions just make it more formulaic and easy. Here I go again, prefer past tense in forensic writing. This is, there again, past tense. Now here I just put big, short sentences, simple words, active voice, topic sentences, argumentative headings. Summed a bunch there. Apostrophe use. Apostrophes, the little comma that's up on top of the sentence, learn about them. They're in the book here, apostrophes. A lot of people didn't use apostrophes for possessives, which I don't understand. That's kind of very basic stuff. So use apostrophes for possessives. Oh, what do I have here? Omit needless words. That's an idea. Don't say the court will look at. Say, I've already said that before, but again, I was taking these notes over a couple of days. A lot of people said this is about whether we're going to let in eyewitness testimony. As a technical matter, it's not. she's going to be able to come to this trial and testify as to what she remembered that day. What we're trying to exclude is evidence of the out-of-court identification gathered during the out-of-court identification procedure. This is very important. This is very important. When they're looking at this back here, it's important because what we want to keep out is we want to keep out the police officer from coming and saying, yes, we brought her down there and she said, oh yeah, that's him. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to be excluded from coming to trial and saying, that's the man who I saw across the way kill the other person. What we're excluding is evidence gathered during the out-of-court identification procedure, not excluding all eyewitness testimony. Commas versus semicolons in a series. Look at the Texas Manual of Style. There I go again. Oh, here I go again. Apostrophe rules. Witnesses. Where do you, if you're talking about the witness's view, is that SS apostrophe S or is it SS apostrophe? Look it up in the Texas Manual. I don't know who put this in there, but somebody said the facts from Ramirez go on by saying, again, that's way too informal, right? We're not putting our feet up on a coffee table and having a chat. This is a brief. Texas Manual on how you, 10 o'clock. There's an apostrophe in there again. There's apostrophes. Okay. Formality versus informality. Firstly, it sounds almost like you should have a British accent when you say it. And not, hey, here are the facts of our case. That's too informal. So think about the level of formality as you're doing this. People that, no, people who. The state. Should this, like capital C court, what about the state? Which, there's an answer to that here. There's an answer to that. Don't say courts will. No, that's predicting. We don't want predictions. That's what weathermen do. You're not weathermen, you're lawyers. You argue. The weathermen aren't arguing that it should rain tomorrow. They're predicting that it's going to rain tomorrow. You are not weathermen. This is just a personal quote. Lawyers do this all the time. They say, defendant, approach the intersection. Plaintiff, I like the defendant and the plaintiff. But again, you won't be alone if you go out and leave those these out, but I just like the these. People have, their comma usage all over the place. Sometimes before quotes, sometimes after quotes. Again, commas. The word whereby, again, you won't be all by yourself if you start using whereby a lot in your legal writing, because lawyers whereby and wherefore a lot, I just don't like it. Omit needless adjectives and adverbs, highly obstructed view. Just show me the view is obstructed with the facts and record sites. Don't throw in the highlies and extremely obstructive. Don't use as instead of because. I like omelets as I like eggs. No. I like omelets because I like eggs. Is what, and again, use block quotes for quotes. Out of 26 or 27 of you all, I think only one person used a block quote. I've got a style set up in all of my Microsoft Word documents for quotes, and you click on it, and boom, it's a block quote. There's a rule, I think in the Blue Book, or maybe there might even be one here. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But there might be a rule that tells you that if the quote is more than 20 words, is it 20 words? Is it
49?
49 words, okay. And is that in here or is that in the Blue Book? Blue Book, okay. There it is. 49 words or more, block quote. Right? Is it 50 words or more? Is it 40? I mean, I know it when I see it. I know if I see a whole paragraph and it's not a block quote, I say to myself, that should be a block quote. So do that. Use block quotes. Use case, pin cites, and record quotes. last one, contractions are okay. I kind of like, in a way, some people say that's a little too informal to say can't or isn't or shouldn't in a brief. But Brian Gardner is the leading writer on all things legal writing, says that he uses contractions all the time. I like the way that he uses contractions. I make it a point to try to put some contractions in there because I like the way it sounds, but be careful, again. Don't use ain't or something like that. but it's not terrible to use contractions. It's not terrible. It is a little informal, but just understand as you're doing it's a little informal, but it's okay. Okay, anybody have any questions about any of this stuff?
Don't forget standard of review for this paper.
Yeah, we definitely need standard of review because now we're on appeal and that's something that's critically important. Yeah.
Is there like an assignment sheet or anything for WA3, or is it just like on the slides, kind of?
Oh, for submission purposes.
I feel like
There are
everything.
If there's an instruction sheet
Oh,
other
yeah.
than on the
It's in the
slides,
plenary, yeah.
we'll get that posted, right?
It was from the plenary session, just the slides.
Just the slides from the plenary session? Are those are posted?
Mhm.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, all right.